Hi guys, so today we are going to be talking about another tool that is near and dear to me. One of my favorite tools, very lightweight, the Echo HC 2020. Homeowner grade, actually. This comes with a 20-inch bar. I call it a bar because I do a lot of chainsaw stuff, but 20-inch blade. I have had to replace that blade one time because on the dump trailer, I can show you a little clip of how it got bent. But anyways, this thing got bent pretty bad. But this thing's been great. It's loud. I'm going to do a cold start for you so you can see. It's loud. I got the screen out of the baffle there. Simple on and off trigger. I've had to replace the primer bulb once. Very simple. It's just 4 little bolts. The filter's been replaced, obviously. Once you get one of these, you're going to want to figure out which screws go into nuts and bolts, hold the blade together. And you're going to want to go to Ace Hardware and get some of these to replace, because these are lock nuts, and the more you adjust them, the more you'll have to adjust them. You know, the more you have to replace them, because that little nylon thread insert inside that nut will wear out. But anyways, the only thing I've had to do to this was replace the lower blade on this, because unlike a lot of trimmers, whereas one of the blades is stationary and the lower blade actually goes back and forth, these blades actually they do this, like that. They both move on each other like this. So you get pretty good cutting power. When you take this apart to get the blade out, you're going to want to take a picture of how the transmission, I guess it is, goes together so you don't mess that up. It took me a couple tries. But I encourage you to learn about these tools, because it's just not worth it, you know. It's just not worth it. If you got an hour, you know, to yourself, and we all say we're busy, but we all got an hour here and there. Learn to work on these tools, because you'll be able to save yourself a lot of money and actual downtime without the tool by bringing it to a shop. So once again, the homeowner edition 20-inch or 22-inch length Echo HC 2020. I'm going to attack a couple different shrubs here, and I'll show you, and we'll talk about what this thing does good and what it does bad. But then again, it all revolves around having sharp blades. If you guys are interested in seeing a video on how to sharpen these things, let me know, because I can show you. It's actually pretty detailed on how to sharpen these, because the profile on the blade means everything. If you're trimming thick stuff, if you're trimming light leafy stuff, you're going to want to have a really sharp blade. But anyways, enough of me yapping. I'll get into it now. All right, guys, welcome to the channel. Hit the like button if you think you might show up again, or if you've seen a couple of our videos. But today we're going to be talking about the homeowner grade Echo HC 2020. This is a homeowner grade that I use professionally, like a lot of our tools. I work on them myself, so I don't mind replacing something here and there. But pros and cons of this thing, I can't really think of any cons. The only cons that I would have for this are just things that would mean you weren't taking care of it. And we all get busy, we all neglect our tools, but basic maintenance, cutability, how well they actually perform, is directly related to, of course, how it runs, but like a chainsaw, how sharp your blades are. Okay, now if you guys want to see a video on how to take this thing apart and get into this whole transmission case here, put it in the comments, because I would actually film that video for you guys. But that's an in-depth one. When you take that thing apart, make sure you take a picture of how it should go back together. But the only things I've had to replace on this thing are the primer bulb. Very easy to replace. Just make sure you get the right size bulb, and it's just four little screws. And the guide bar, or one of the blades. I think it was the bottom blade I had to replace, because I store it on the side of my dump trailer, and I closed the dump trailer, and it got bent, and I didn't know it. But other than that, this thing is really, really great, and I'll show you why here in just a minute. All right, so we're gonna do a cold start, and I'm not lying. I'll put my finger right on the exhaust, and you'll see all that gunk in there, because I run 40-to-1 or even more oil, because I run these very hard. But then again, I take very good care of them. This is a actual cold start. It was pretty nasty. So what I'll do is I will turn it on. I love this little switch. and I will full choke it. This wore off, but choke all the way up. Give it a couple primes. I don't really like to use primer bulbs because it's just another area to fail. You're supposed to prime it like 9 times, but it's kind of hard to hold the camera. But I will do this for you. I'll set you down 1 sec. Still cold. I just had to stop the camera to get going. Still cold. Still cold. Here we go. All right, turned over. Now I go half choke. The one thing I'll say about these is they take a minute to get warmed up to the point where they'll actually reach that max RPM. And you really want to make sure that all of these nuts and bolts here are tightened equally. Like, this is the hard, because if these bolts right here, these nuts are too tight, like you can't do this with it, chances are it's going to be clamping down too much on this top plate. If you go down to the bottom and that one does not spin freely, then chances are that's pushing up too much on the bottom blade here. You don't want to have enough play to where you can slide that bolt up and down. You just want it to be free so the whole unit spins like this. Every single one of them. I might need to do some adjustments, but so far so good. Yeah, these all move. So what happens is if these get too tight, if you get any nick at all on the inside of one of these blades, what could happen is they could cross and they bite into each other, rendering it pretty much useless until you file that out. As far as this guard goes, some people say it's a safety hand guard, whatever. It's not. What it does for me is it helps me rest on top of a shrub and keep that same trimming height. I leave that on this one. On my Huskies, I take it off. But anyways, let's do a little bit of trimming. So like I said before, no matter how this thing's running or how good you are of a operator, what it really boils down to is just like a chainsaw, is how sharp your chain or your blade is. Because if you're trying to do things like this with little tiny leaves, really what's going to manicure that is how cleanly each leaf can be cut. When you get to things like this, it can be kind of dull because really what you're cutting are, soft little new growth sticks, So this is pretty easy. You don't need something really, really sharp, but it does help for when you get down into the canopy like this. You don't want to be tearing leaves halfway through. You want to be actually cutting them all the way through. So I'll show you how nicely these things can cut on this. Hopefully you can get a close up to it. And then I'll go over to here. So as you can see with these, to come in closer one more time, I'll show you. Each leaf is actually cut, like very nice. It's not torn or anything. What you want to avoid is this could be from me, but it looks like it's actually started to heal over, is it's actually torn and it starts to turn brown. If it tears, then the whole thing kind of looks brown. If you get nice, good, clean cuts, then it looks nice and even. Over here, I'll kind of just wipe through this really quick and show you how fast this can go. And this is a 22-inch, or actually, I think it's a 20-inch blade. So you can almost reach all the way across. But what I do is I just stand in the back and then I stand in the front. I'll show you how quick these things can. going to do a little bit more on that after, but I want to show you really importantly podocarpus. These are inherently difficult to trim with dull trimmers because this is almost all leaf, like all leaf. You can see this is a lower part, this is a higher part. So every time you come to trim podocarpus, it's always new growth, especially the sides, because the leaves want to go upwards and you don't want to go downward on a podocarpus because you'll end up pulling out a bunch of it like this. So you want to go upwards, and that's also why on these, the Echo HC20, I leave this trimmer guard on, because if that trimmer guard wasn't on there and you went to just rest it in there, it would fall way too deep. This kind of gives you a little buffer, and it almost acts like a little comb too, separating the leaves, helping you cut it. But I'll kind of show you what I do on these. Overall, just a really good trimmer, and I think, I don't know, what do we pay, $100 something for these, 200 bucks. Really good. The blade ended up bending, that was my fault. Keep the blade sharp. If you leave fuel in it, you're going to need to replace the primer bulb. That's really easy. And then again, it's all about the restartability. Oh, another important part is there is no tunable carburetor on this. It's just an idle screw, so it just is what it is when you get it. But restartability, turn it back on, pull it, turn it back on. That's all I care about when it comes to a tool. I don't care if it's professional or whatever, that works. That's the Echo HC20 right there. Sweet. So now that I loosened this screw right here back up, I might need to loosen it a little bit more, but it's this one right here, still kind of tight. The blade should move now. There you go. I think Echo could come up with a slightly better system for that, but ultimately for the price you get, these things perform really well. Just a couple maintenance things you need to look after.